You probably know the story, or maybe you don't, that Powassan started at Bingham Chute. Are you aware of that? I'll show you where it all started. Bingham Chute was previously, let's say, Powassan. A guy by the name of Bingham and his partner by the name of Day, Bingham and Day, started a grist mill, a lumber mill, and eventually made their own generating station for electricity purposes. And the present generating station, owned by, it was Ontario Hydro when I was there, it was Ontario Power Generation now, eh? So with that, Powassan started to become Powassan, but it wasn't where it is now. It's out here at Bingham Chute. This whole strip of land out here is the former town of Powassan. Not very far that way, not very far that way. The strip of land out to the chute was Powassan. And the town center is where you and I are coming from there. And when Ontario Hydro, or Hydroelectric Power Commission of Ontario, took over this hydro plant up here, they had several operators working here. They had operators in training. They came here from all over the province to train at the generating station. Some of these houses on the left were hydro operator houses, eh? I'm going to turn up here, but this is where it all started, Bingham Chute. Quite a little settlement here. The mill was down in behind here. What really changed Powassan's locale was the fact that the Grand Trunk Railway, now the CNR, came through Powassan. So with that, the town more or less moved a mile and a quarter east, eh? But from the bridge here, on both sides for maybe a couple hundred feet, town of Powassan. The rest, South Innsbruck Township, which is now all Powassan, right? Municipality of Powassan. A long time ago, in 1931, I was born in Little Nipissing Village, the same house that Bobby Orr's mother lived in. Bobby Orr's mother, Arva Steele, Orr, and my dad are first cousins, eh? So there's a little bit of connection there, you know. But at age 7, we moved from Nipissing to Port Loring, to Callender, and then to Powassan. I was 7 when we came to Powassan. I can remember this was all farm property here. This was the Healy farm. Bill Butler bought it out and made a subdivision. And once we started this turn around the fairgrounds, it's reasonably new, you know. And I'm going to go in the old entrance to the fair. So we're going, this is part of the old fairgrounds right here. That building there, Cam, on the fairgrounds, was owned by a fox guy from Kitchener. He had a fox farm up on the hill called Ski Hill now. And every fall, he would take the mink in there and they depelt them, you know, skin them. A lot of local guys would spend a week up here skinning the foxes, eh? So eventually, Mr. Thompson was his name. He donated that building to the Powassan Agricultural Society. Yeah, there's a lot of history here, and I'm going to show you approximately where this roundhouse, and there's a few postcards around. I think there were sketches of this roundhouse. It was, I say, hexagon shape, you know. Mm-hmm. And some of the fair directors decided it was unsafe and they tore it down. It was located just about where those tables are right there. And as I say, you could climb, as kids we used to climb to the top, because initially, this right around the track here, Cam, was a racetrack. They had horse races in the old days, not my day, well before me. And they'd go up to the top and you could watch the races from this cubicle on top of the roundhouse, eh? A lot of people were really dismayed by the fact that it was torn down. I can remember vividly my dad selling tickets out of a little ticket house here on fair day. Lots of volunteers then, you know. The little house that I'm talking about, my dad sold tickets. It was down here, like I told you. It's out here now. The story goes that little ticket house was owned by a director of the fair, L.F. Robertson, but he was a notary public at the time, and his daughter Mary had that as a playhouse. And when she became too old to enjoy the playhouse, they donated it to the fair. It's been used for ever since as a ticket house, and that's the ticket house my dad sold many a ticket to the Powassan Fair. Quite the little old building, eh? Of course, the Clark House, you know the story of the Clark House stall? It is the oldest building in Powassan. It was owned by W.F. Clark. He was the first, settler in this community. And people invariably would come to this area, no place to stay, and he'd book them into his big mansion here, you know. It was a mainstay for Powassan. He owned almost all the west side of the town of Powassan as it exists now. The far side, the east side, was owned by a guy named Armstrong, and I'm part Armstrong, but that Armstrong was not related to many of mine. They owned the east side out towards the Chisholm south end boundary now, I guess, you know. The Clark House Museum was not part of the fairgrounds. It's part of the old Mr. Clark owned this whole shebang here, eh? At one time, Cam, this road here didn't exist. That didn't exist. The highway went out to Nipsing, right along here. Great big S turn around by where the OPP is now. So this is all new right here. But this road went around just like I am now. Not entirely right here, but close. Until it met where the bridge is now and then went along Clark Street. You can just consider the road going straight ahead and circle around the police office and onto Clark Street. Eh? The old, the church is here, the one across the road here. The entrance was off Clark Street here now, not off the other street over there. They eventually built a new Anglican church, and the Catholic Church and the Anglican congregation switched personages. The Catholics got the big house here, and the Anglicans got the big house on the road, what we used to call the road to the station on the left-hand side there. And they switched persons, so to speak, you know. And as a kid, I went to the Sunday school at the Anglican Church, and since my dad was United, and he's on the board of stewards, Ronnie and I switched over to the United Church, and of course that's what I was, sang in the choir, and went to church twice on Sunday, in the morning and at night. The entrance to the Catholic Church was from right here, eh? Us Protestants, we'd look forward to going to midnight mass, eh? At the Catholic Church here, yeah. That was formerly the entrance right there. And all this property here was the parking lot for the horses and buggies for the people, the congregation. And right where those cars are, Cam, was the long drive shed where the horses could stay while the service was on, you know. So like we say, we're on Clark Street, and this is the old, where the public school was, where all us orangutans went to school. I went to school, the old Powassan Public School, grade 8. Then we went to what we call the Powassan Continuation School then, which is on Edward Street South there now. Then it became the Powassan High School. Eventually became the Powassan District High School. And those are fond memories. I went 4 years there, and this Masonic Hall was located not too far from where I showed you where the little ticket house is on the fairgrounds. And it was moved down here and became a Masonic Hall. This big mansion here, as I call it, was owned by the famous Dr. Delane. Have you ever heard of Dr. Delane? Famous doctor here. He had to bring 4,000 or 5,000 children into the world. Famous doctor. His nephew doctored with him. He's had several doctors come and go during the course of 40 or 50 years, and but that's his famous house there, yeah. The guy that owned that, his name was Tom Ternuth. He owned the store where the Hawk and Fox is now, and he also owned this house here, and he rented it out, eh. This on the right, Cam, was the famous Powassan News office, owned by J.B. Lake, former mayor of Powassan. Sort of an opera singer, sang a lot of weddings. The part right here is all fairly new here. But the printing press used to be right in there when we were kids. And the place next to it was a tailor shop owned by J.C. Frederick. He operated that as a tailor shop for a long time. His crippled son, who had polio, was a watchmaker, or repairman, I guess, more than watchmaker. He operated out there a long time. I often think about, particularly 1945, when the war was over, May 7th, Kelly Campbell and I, my friend, lived next to me. We walked down the street, and nice May day, and we were in grade 7, I guess. And Eddie Little, the principal and our teacher, turned the radio on, 10 o'clock. The war is over. The Catholic Church bell here started chiming away, you know. So they let us out of school. And I remember 2 nights later, or a night later, I guess, they had a bonfire in front of where the Quick Mart is now, or I guess across the street a little bit, and a dance for the Quick Mart on the pavement there, you know. Lots of celebration that the war was over. I mentioned about the bonfire after the war was over that day. It was right, there was a blacksmith shop right there, an old building, and they had a fire right in front of those doors, and a street dance right here. Yeah. But I remember the war years vividly, you know, that's for sure. A lot of the guys went overseas, some returned, some didn't. And I think in 1946 or 47, I often think about the town of Powassan honored these veterans with a special night, evening, at the old Golden Sunshine Club. That was the Powassan Town Hall, eh? I still got pictures at home of one row on the left side, another row on the right side. They all got rings presented to them, you know. It was really a nice gesture on the behalf of Powassan, you know. I think of those days quite a bit, and then the guys coming back, you know, some coming to their old jobs, some stayed around, farmed. Eventually a lot of them moved away, you know. And as long as I can remember, this has been a service station garage owned by the guy we remember mostly was Harry DeMaine. He hired a lot of local folks, eventually hiring Chick Garland, who was a mechanic, and Chick took a partner, my cousin, Nagy Malpe, and they ran it for years and years and years. And now Chick Garland's son, Gary, runs it now, eh? The house on the left up here was owned by a famous lumberman around here, Fred Beckler Sr., and that was quite a manse, as you can well imagine. That's the old, when I was a kid, it was owned by A.L. Perkins, a general store. His house up on the hill there, we called it the Perkins Estate. I'll drive around there and show you. None of these streets were paved, Cam, then, you know. But when I was a kid, this is quite an estate. I can remember the old gentleman died in a great big funeral, eh? But this is the famous Perkins Estate here, eh? Built by Mr. Topsum out your way in Chisholm. One of the more stately homes around here, you know. Maple Ridge, to begin with, not to be repetitious, was called the Powassan Continuation School, a 2-room schoolhouse with basement. Eventually they got 2 army huts installed up behind when the more kids came in there from Trout Creek and Alsace and Resthill. And eventually they built a big addition to it. My dad was on the school board then. And eventually became Powassan High School, then Powassan District High School, and of course now it's Maple Ridge. It was Maple Ridge Junior Public School, and now it's just Maple Ridge School. A few years later, my dad became a counselor. I think he was a counselor for 8 or 9 terms, I forget. And then he became mayor for 3 terms. So Ronnie, my next brother, went around Powassan called the Little Colts, the mayor's sons, the Little Colts. We had to, Laura, keep our mouths more or less shut because Dad was the mayor, and we couldn't say too much, you know, you imagine, eh? So And of course the old town hall, now the Golden Age Club, is on the right, eh? If you look across the street where that flagpole is, where the little library was, that one you have the picture of, eh? And across the street was the famous Giesler Boatworks, right in there, yeah. Yeah, this was the Powassan High School, you know. And this is the street I lived on. And at the time I lived in the last house. I remember going to school, the farmers were coming into town with a load of logs or a load of hay or something like that, and on a set of sleighs, 2 horses, and we catch on the back sleigh and hitch a rag down to school or something, as long as the teamster didn't see us, you know. And we used to say, well, when we got to school, it was the old Powassan Public School, and people used to ask, where do you live? And we said, oh, we live in Edward Street. Yeah, that's a tough street, eh? Well, I guess we thought it was tough. I used to kid myself and tell a few friends, hey, we lived in a tough street, and the further south you went, the tougher you got. I lived in the last house. The old saying, I lived in the last house, yeah. There wasn't too many houses. This house was here. The house on the left was here. And then another one, and then nothing right to the liquor store. The liquor store was built by a guy named Paul Lecklander, a Powassanite. He lives in North Bay now. He eventually sold it to the LCBO, as you know, eh? I'm going to show you where I lived during the war. And there was no house in between you. See that little white house? That's where I lived during the Second World War. The chap, you know the Gamals, eh? Pretty well. You know Clayton and Allen. Old Mr. Gamal at one time built that house, sold it, built this house, and then moved down here. Old Mr. Gamal eventually built this house here, and that's where they lived and died. That was the game warden Eddie Scuse's house. Famous game warden around here, and we had a little rink right near where that lawn is now. This is the street where I live now, and when I was a kid, Cam, this was just a laneway, a path. And up at the end of the street, old Mr. Gamal, being a German, he had a Jensen pen. You know what Jensen is? The herb? It's a herb or something. He owned all this property. He had a pen. It was an outdoor pen where he grew this Jensen weed or something. The first guy to build a house here was Charlie Driscoll. After he came back from the war, he built a little house. That little house there. Murray Moore, another guy, built another here, and he built that little house. Of course, they finally moved the house and built bigger house. This is my house here. But this is all new, eh? And I often think my dad owned this property right from here, right through to the South Street, and right through to Edward Street. All he had, our house, and the property was all ours. This was the south end of Powassan. We called it the Gravel Pit Road because the gravel pit was over here right now, and still a gravel pit across there. This is the south extremities of Powassan. This is our ball diamond. My brothers and all the neighbors up near where that telephone pole is home plate. That's my homestead over here. I'll show you. 3 houses built here by the same guy, and they're pretty all the same shape. That was our home plate right here, and we batted towards my homestead here. Like I said, we lived in the last house right here. There was no more houses, eh? You can see these 3 houses are pretty well all the same. Same construction. This Paul Lechner, I said, he built the liquor store. He built this house down here. We call it the Stone House. And then they only lived there when they got married, and they didn't live there very long. They built this. This house has been here a long time. There's the new Kewen apartment building going up. This is the Whitaker homestead, former mayor of Powassan, on the garage south of Powassan here. Hearn Paul, the undertaker in Powassan, had a hardware store, and he had a cement. We call it the cement house. He sold cement out of this building right ahead and around the track. Eh? I mentioned the fact that my father, when he came to Powassan, he ran a grist mill and a flour and feed store right where the chip stand is now. And many bags of feed I unloaded from the carloads off the track. Eh? This was a famous restaurant, Lodge, Farley's Lodge, when I was a kid. This being one of the many gasoline outfits when I was a kid. I mentioned, I think, 17 or 18. This is one of the famous grocery stores. The stores, there had to be 8 or 9 grocery stores, you know, some small, some big. And as you know now, there's one and a convenience store. Eh? Times have changed. And as you know, we call this is called the House of Refuge, or the Pogey House, and now of course the Eid family home. Eh? And this is where the original funeral home was, and it was destroyed by fire. Eh? And the north end was the furniture store. Invariably, undertakers, as well as being undertakers, had a furniture store or a hardware store, one or the other. Where Value Mart is now was a garage, a mechanic's garage, sold gasoline. But in those days, the farmers come in to shop on Saturday night. The store stayed open till 9 o'clock, naturally, for the farmers. Not only the shop, but they came to converse and tell their tales and talk about Ann and farming. Yeah, it was good, you know, those days. That 2-story building here was the famous shoemaker shop, if you can imagine. And this is the famous Duffy's Grill. It was open 7 days a week till midnight. Like I say, catered to a lot of the crowd in the evening from the pub here. Eh? There was a bake shop in there. This was Barrett's Grocery here. This was Blackmore's Garage. This is the famous, it was Porter's store to begin with. And then Porter sold it to Tom Turnuth, and the Porter house was right there, big mansion. And I mentioned L.F. Robinson earlier about his daughter donating the little playhouse to the fairgrounds. This was their house and office. He was an attorney, you know. And when I mentioned the fact the Anglican Church and the Catholic Church swapped rectories, this was the original Catholic rectory. It became the Anglican rectory. This was all pretty well to do with Toe Creek Lumber Company. The station, the famous station, was right here ahead. The original one was across the street, like I told you. And piles of lumber. I'll show you here. I think I can drive through here. Along this trail here, loads and loads of piles of lumber. This was all lumber yard. All along here. And I'm going to show you a famous hangout for us kids. This was a well-torn track. The lumber trucks used it all the time. You can see there was a siding right here, eh? And right at the end of this road where it turns down to Main Street was cattle pens. Every town pretty well had cattle pens near the railroad track, ship cattle out once a week, and we'd pay tag on the cattle pens. I'll show you where it was. The cattle pens is right ahead there where that green spot is. And we'd swing the gates there to avoid being touched, you know, for playing tag and that. That was the famous cattle pens, yeah. Yeah, I say 1937, Powassan Main Street was paved, and they had concrete sidewalks, eh? I often think about the old days when they had the plank strips for sidewalks. I can remember riding our bicycle down the plank, and if they were laid lengthwise, you could go like a gun, you know. Some of them were crossways though. But apparently the main street of Powassan, which is Main Street now, that was called King Street then, it's now Main Street, was paved with concrete in 1937. And a lot of the Main Street and some of the little side streets had cement sidewalks as well. But the majority had wood planks. And it was quite a change, you know. And the only street that was paved was the Main Street, of course. The rest were all old-time dirt roads, you know, that's for sure. And where the sportsplex is now is the famous Powassan Arena, like I told you, built in 1934, eh? And it was, in the wintertime, was the hub of the community, eh? But in the wintertime, it was hockey. Powassan was a hockey town, still is to a point, but big time then. Most famous hockey team, I guess, was the Powassan Hawks. They led the North Bay and District Hockey League for years. And along came the juveniles, the 18-year-olds and under. They in turn won a total of 3 All-Ontario champions, you know. But I say, hockey was big. Even though in the winter there might have been 6 or 7 outdoor rinks, if you're a good boy on Saturday, you got down to the big rink. The big rink was the old Powassan Community Center in Powassan Arena, we call it, built in 1934, had the best ice in the district by far. Everybody praised them that. North Bay didn't have a rink in 1934, so Powassan was the center of the hockey world in those days, you know. But I think of going to those games, you know, everything stopped for hockey, whether it be juveniles or the Hawks, which was intermediate. They had imports. They ran the guys that run the team were a guy by the name of Harry Murner, Fred Beckler, Paddy Moosaw wasn't gone there. Doc Brownlee was the dentist, and he was the boss man of it. And they ran it just like a pro operation. I eventually became a stick boy, so I know what it was all about, you know. On a road trip, say to Huntsville or Graven, they all got their meals paid after the game, including myself. Yeah, it was big time, you know, that's for sure. The Lions built this park here for the softball in the mid-50s, I guess, whereas we used to play ball up at the fairgrounds until they made this. Sometimes we played at the behind Maple Ridge there, you know. But ball was big in the summertime too, always good. The Legion sponsored the ball team for years and years and years. But we always say the slow pitch took over from the softball, and now slow pitch has been dead too, so. I can remember this house here, one of the few houses here, was owned by a guy named Jack Lang. He was the local constable. And we were being bad. Our parents used to say, keep that up, we'll call Mr. Lang, put us in the coop. You can tell this is pretty well all new, eh? We'd be out of the town limits the way it was. This is former South Hemsworth, eh? Now the municipality of Powassan, of course. And way up there beyond, as far as you can see there, we skate for a couple hours, then we go up to what they call closest hill to sleigh ride. No matter how cold it was and how far it was, we still went. Our parents would wonder where the hell we were, but you wouldn't catch kids doing that nowadays. But then they built, the old road was right here, like I say, and then they built this one. Of course, the bypass replaced all 3 of them. But this is the old highway right here. And boy, was it rough in the wintertime, going up to hockey games in North Bay. Rough. Oh. One of the first, I guess the second gasoline outfits was up here on the right. The first was further, maybe 1.25 miles north. When I was a kid, there was at least 17 or 18 gasoline outlets, starting from the north end to the south end. And you know what we got now? One, eh? One gasoline outfit, you know. But 17 back in those days, and we didn't think that of it, you know. They all must have made money, that's for sure. I think I showed you a picture, you wouldn't expect to remember, but this is called Hillside Park Service Station, right in here. And you can imagine 17 or 18 gasoline outfits then, as recent as the Second World War. Now there's one, Garland's. Now we're going to what we call, when we were kids, we called this the dump hill, because on the left-hand side up here was the dump, the local dump. Now there's houses built on it. There used to be a hill right ahead. You can't see it now in the spring when the leaves are off. They call it the Camp Hill. You'd either ski down it or come down in a toboggan, you know. Straight ahead there. You can see the indentation there, eh? There were 2 or 3 little houses along here, but that's all it was. Boy, when you come down here on a sleigh ride, if you went across the track, you were a hero, boy. All the turns and that. Sleigh riding was a big thing then, you know. And on the left right here was where the dump was, you know. And now, as I say, houses sitting on top of the dump. That was all dump. My wife lived 2 miles out here. And she never missed a hockey game, but a real hockey fan. Walked in, not ride. Yeah, in 1948 they built this called the bypass around here, and I worked on it all one summer. Many an hour I spent working on this in the hot summer. Oh boy. That's the famous mountain, Powassan Mountain. In the summertime, us kids and a lot of kids would spend a lot of time up there. There's a trail up behind East Home, or you can go by road from the subdivision. It was called Ellesmere Park. The guy that ran the Pokey House, or the House of Refuge, the House of Refuge owned all the property up here where all the pines are and everything. He had all the inmates, I call them inmates, patients I guess, plant pine trees. That's the result today, eh? Invariably, from now till September till Labor Day, this is where you'd find the kids in the summertime, at the swimming hole. It's hard to imagine now. It was the only place around here to swim. Are you directing traffic here, Mr. Cameron, or what?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good.
What's the problem?
I'm taking them up to the old swimming hole. You could tell them all about that if you want.
Well, there's nothing to see up there anymore because they've filled it all in when they put
the
thing in.
Yeah, that's right. Can you remember the cookhouse?
Oh yeah, all right there.
And the girls bathing the house, and the boys bathing the house?
And on this side was the men's and women's shit house right there down in the creek bank.
You got it, you got it.
All that sort of stuff.
I'm just going to show Cam where it was, that's for sure.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Originally Powassanite. His dad was a local electrician. Yeah, right here, you can see the creek here, Cam. You couldn't imagine, just up here on the right was where the swimming hole was widened then, eh? Closed into, they made the Powassan town pumps over in there, they tore it down since. When they made the town pumps, that done away with the swimming. There was a boys' change room, girls' change room, cooking utensil building. Oh, big time here in the wartime. There's all kinds of trails up here, Cam. There's a quarter-mile track and a half-mile track, and eventually leads up to the mountain. You can see all the pines. Those are all planted by the patients of the House of Refuge. Between fishing and playing ball and swimming, this is where we hung out. Well, we've hit most of the places. Powassan, to me and all the other folks like me, were real dyed-in-the-wool Powassanites. For instance, when the headquarters of Hydro here for one time was Powassan, the line department, and they moved it to North Bay, and a bunch of us up there, and they said, well, you guys have to move North Bay. And there had to be 20 or 25 Hydro employees at the time, and we said, no, we want to live in Powassan, we'll drive back and forth. We insisted on it. I think 2 or 3 guys did move up, but the majority stayed in Powassan because we were Powassanites, small town turkeys.